Should I change shirts to make it look like I'm a good student and I'm not procrastinating? I know this is only for you, but like, was that good? Alrighty, so I'm answering these questions. Reflection, which I have done a lot in this class. I'm turning this video into a skit video. Well, hello there, Professor Haggiston. Hello, yes, I am Professor Haggiston with the same face as you. Well, first of all, what are at least 2 things you changed from your workshop draft? I gave the story an ending. The first ending was not the vibe, but at least I ended it. For some reason, I kept mixing up the names of the 2 girls when I reread it. I'm so sorry for all my classmates, because that is so confusing. In my story, the dad couldn't hear that well, so he kept mixing up the name Jasmine and Madeline, in which I got confused in the story, actually. But her name's Madeline, and so I went and fixed all that, too. What was the story workshop experience like for you? I actually went up there expecting everyone in the class to hate my work and not have anything to say. I was so surprised when I read my story that there was not really a moment of silence, and that made me feel so good. It made me feel so proud of my work. That whole workshop experience for me was always really, really good because the people in my class gave me such great feedback. And the ones that really stuck out to me were Gabriella and Sydney, especially Sydney, because I just really like her work. And she always has something very meaningful to say. She actually came up to me after class and told me how much she liked my story draft. I kind of wanted to end the story off with the dad kind of not accepting her and then her just kind of moving off and going away from her small town. But everyone in the class wanted a sweet ending because the story in itself was very sweet. Sarah, the main character, had a great relationship with her dad. And there were some great suggestions of the dad being oh, well, I already knew a closet was glass. Why does your story end where it does? Did any of the published stories help you decide how to end your story? Does it avoid the pitfalls Cardos mentioned in Chapter 8? You're making me pull out the textbook for this one. It ends with Sarah's dad coming up to them and being like, Sarah, if I knew that your girlfriend was coming, I would have woken you up earlier instead of letting you sleep in so that you could doll up. I think that's cute. So yeah, I did actually try my best to avoid all of Cardo's pitfalls in Chapter 8. What might you do in other drafts of your story and why? If I were to do another draft, I think that I would probably try to come up with another ending. Expand more of the scene where Madeline and Sarah... So Sarah's running late to church because she overslept and her dad didn't wake her up. She goes... She's riding her bike, la 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 la, and then she crashes into somebody and her adrenaline's pumping so bad, she's like, oh my god, I have mud everywhere, whatever, and she looks up and it's Madeline who's also running late. And they kind of just sit there and they're like, oh my god. And Madeline's, she's a little bit of a flirt, all on top of each other. And Sarah's like, oh my god. They end up just walking back and then they go to church. This church is so small and so old, so when they walk in, it's creaky. And I want to kind of expand upon the imagery of that and just really feel the secondhand embarrassment of Madeline and Sarah walking in all dirty. And maybe Madeline should kiss Sarah on the cheek, and then Sarah has this lipstick on, and then Madeline's something like that. That'd be kind of funny. That'd be kind of secondhand embarrassment. That'd be oh god. Which of the published stories from this class did you especially admire? How did reading this story help you with your own writing process? I really admired Catherine Pierce's Chadwick Lake, 8:15 a.m. Just the imagery in that poem and the one stanza, it really did something to me. And having it half the page, and it was just a constant asking questions to the lake as if the lake was a person. The poem personified the lake, and I loved personification. I think it's so cool, and I love to read things like that, and I want to write things like that, yet I haven't. I should. I just think it's so cool. I really like that poem. Which poem did you enjoy writing the most and why? What are some specific changes you made to at least 2 of your poems from your first draft to your final draft? Poem 6. So in my poem, My Favorite Places, that was inspired by Florida, I took out the line, child's colorful laughter echoes pure rings in my ears, and romantic picnics or gathering of families, simple enjoyment of love and nature. I imagine these families sitting out on picnic towels. There's couples beside them that are just laid out. You don't usually see this in Mississippi, but in Florida there were a lot of people who would just lay out together on just little blankets. I kind of took it out because it's not relatable to the folk of Mississippi. So, and some Skittles. I took out the word replented some and some Skittles because I thought it was a word. Because the internet said it was a word, and it's not a word, really. But I did add some more colorful words to it. Online, 5 and 6. Handful of Skittles, not a single one to be shared. Scared that I will eat more than what she thought was fair. Revised, handful of Skittles, caged, not to be shared. Scared I will eat more than what she believed was fair. So believe, thought, caged were added. What was the poem workshop experience like, and how did it affect your revision process? My poem workshop experience was honestly really nice. I had read my poem to my brother and, put on YouTube beats before, performing it to the class, because my poem was a performance because I added beats and rhythm and wanted it to be stronger said out loud than it looked on paper, because on paper it was just kind of like, I wanted it to come off as like more powerful. That is exactly what happened. A lot of people thought that it was very powerful due to how I read it, and I really appreciate people thinking that my work is funny, because I do intend it to be funny sometimes, but I don't expect people to actually think it's funny, because it's, my sense of humor is very, interesting, for sure. The 2 times I got up to do workshops, I left feeling so good about myself. I left with so many new ideas. I really loved Gabriella telling me to do colorful imagery. And I like the support and feedback, and I appreciate Sydney's honesty with, sometimes, things don't make sense, and the lines for this poem was long, so I appreciated some of the folks telling me that, too. Which of the published poems or poems from the poetry packet did you most admire? I said this in my other video, but I really like writing my favorite places. It just reminds me of my second home and my comfort and how much I miss it. So it just makes me feel so warm and reminiscent. Not even playing. You can tell Catherine this. Catherine Pierce's work is phenomenal, and I'm so glad that you showed us her work, because my God, she is an incredible writer. I really like Chadwick Lake 8:15 a.m. because of the imagery, and just look at that. It's just so nice. What are you most proud of writing this semester, and why? I'm most proud of writing the short story. It was completely out of my comfort zone. I was so scared of reading that out loud in class, actually, because it's kind of 2 controversial topics in one story, and I didn't know how people were going to take it. Having a religious and gay story intertwined into one is so heavy sometimes, and I was so scared, but I'm so glad it was, received well. How did you challenge yourself and grow as a writer? The story in itself, I challenged myself because I wrote from a perspective of liking a female, and I'm sure it's very similar to just liking a male. So I kind of just went into perspective of what it would be like. I was completely out of my comfort zone, Also, writing some Skittles was completely out of my comfort zone and a challenge, because I usually just write things solely based on nature, never having dialogue really in my poem. I don't usually write funny things. So that was also new for me, and I actually like it. So that was cool. What did you learn about yourself as a writer, reader, or thinker? And how does this identity manifest itself into pieces you've written this semester? So I learned that I really do like writing poetry a lot, and that I like using humor in my work. I didn't think I would, but I really do. It just really feels like me, and I can express me. I think that's really cool. Is there anything you want to learn more about after taking this class, or any author's work you'd like to read more of? I honestly want to read more of Catherine Pierce's work. I really, really liked her work this whole semester, everything I've seen from her and read from her. Good stuff. I'm really going to be looking up her and seeing more stuff from her.